morning, Bangalore. I go to a lot of developer conferences. One of the things about the developer conferences, they're louder. So we're going to do this again. Good morning, Bangalore.
Good morning.
Still not there. Let's do it once more. Good morning, Bangalore.
Good morning.
All right, we get it there. Thank you. Okay. First of all, I just want to thank the team at Samsung to invite me over for the talk. It's an absolute privilege to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me. Really appreciate this. I also want to congratulate you guys on creating the fourth operating system literally coming out and scaling out here. The world can use more operating systems, so kudos to that and congratulations on the growth that you had. I actually didn't realize before coming into the event that the scaling and the growth of Tizen has been as what you guys projected today. So congratulations on that, please. We are in the business, as in Mobi, we are in the business of mobile advertising. And many times people, ask me, including my own daughter, it's like, why do you do advertising? What does it do to people? Like, why do you do it? And it, to me, it's, when we started the company, both me and my co-founders, and one of my co-founders sitting out here, Amit, when we started the company long time ago, the idea of advertising is far more powerful than what many people actually understand. And the power of advertising is in the ability for making something accessible to every human being. And to us, that is what this journey is all about. The journey of advertising and the journey of reimagining advertising is to be able to essentially create services, great content, great products that are being created out there that could be in the hands of every one of us. The reason why newspapers are in the hands of so many of us, televisions are in so many of our homes, and we can look at so much great content. It's because advertising allowed it to happen. And so therefore, the power of advertising in general in the ecosystem, as it scales and it has to achieve mass adoption, becomes really important. And so that's our journey. And so let me take you through that journey a little bit. Look, we are a 7-year-old company. It's humbling to actually stand in front of all of you and at the Samsung event, which is what, 100 year? Some pretty large number. I take that. It's a pretty large number. It's humbling. And so I just wanted to take you through the last few years of our journey and talk about where we are headed and how do we think we can disrupt the world of advertising. Our journey for the last 7 years has been, it has its own ups and downs. It has its own challenges. It's a journey which we believe, started off pretty small out here in Koramangala. I don't know if a lot of you are from here, so then you would know there is a barista on 85th Road. That's where we used to start. We used to sit because they had a free Wi-Fi. And that free Wi-Fi was the critical thing because, we didn't have money to pay for Wi-Fi. And then, the coffee is not that expensive, so you could spend the whole day literally sitting there and using it. So we started off our journey in some suburb, in some coffee shop in Koramangala. But we had few things that we always held to ourselves, as a company. One was that we always wanted to think really big. And and that was something that we put to ourselves on day one. And we said, look, if you're going to do something, we want to do something which is really, really impactful and really big. It's easily said and done, but there are certain decisions that we made based on these principles that we are very proud of. Early in our journey, we had, if some of you are familiar with our journey, we were earlier known as M-Coach. And we had a business which was in the SMS space, and we were trying to monetize text messages. It was a good enough business, by the way, don't get me wrong, it would have made decent scale. But we didn't see it becoming fundamentally large, impactful, and world-changing. We shut it. and we moved on from there. And that was the simple principle that we applied to it. Is this going to be big enough or not? And it didn't. It didn't pass that principle. And so we moved on from there. And so the principle of thinking big has been at the core of anything that we have done. Anything. We believe we applied that principle in how we wanted to grow the company. We were a one-year-old company when we made a big decision on saying, hey, how should we think about expanding ourselves? Those days, even today, by the way, there are not many companies that would go out there and say, okay, hey, I want to actually build a business which has to be global. Still, there are a few companies that are thinking about it now. 6 years ago, that was considered a bad topic. That was considered that you are insane. But we said, look, there is a reason why we wanted to essentially go ahead and think about building a global business, because we were early in the mobile monetization space, and we felt that if we were able to build this business out, become global, then we would have a global platform. And we potentially had a chance, but there was a huge failure points there. So we applied what we said, the first principle, that we really wanted to build something big, but at the same time wanted to make sure that, look, if we could think globally, the scale of the impact that one can have is absolutely different level. And we were told by many people not to do this. We were told by many people to say, look, that's not something that you could do. We didn't necessarily listen to a lot of those people. We're not good at listening to people. We did what we wanted to do. We did go global. It was very, very hard. It's not easy to try and essentially build a business today, or try and build a business at that time across so many different countries, because you're not familiar with them. Nobody wants to work with you. It's really hard to hire. But we went through that grind. The ability to essentially go through that grind of building something which is global really helped us scale. So today, we are roughly about 1,000 people with about 32 nationalities that work for us. And we have offices across many places. I haven't been to all of them. But we have them across many, many places. And it's an absolute pleasure, because when whether it's San Francisco or New York or Beijing or Shanghai, Seoul, to Singapore, to London and Paris, it's an absolute pleasure, because you're trying to build business which is phenomenally different than what it were if it were in only one country. The other thing which it did, by the way, trying to build this business at a very large global scale, was to essentially, and we didn't predict this, by the way, was to essentially have amazing product creation. When you are forced to build a product that has to be used globally, and that is not just being used in India, where there was, at least some years ago, some attitude of saying, chalta hai. You can build a product that can just, you can swing by it. We didn't have those options. We were forced to build the world-class products from the get-go. That forced us to go through a much tougher fight. And a lot of times we would sit back and say, why did we take this fight? You could have actually done with like half the effort and done very, very well in some smaller markets, and owned those markets. But we took that big fight, but it created something where we felt a culture within the company of creating great products and pushing ourselves continuously to try and build amazing products at breakneck speed that the world is essentially used to. And I thought it's a great DNA that we actually have in the company today because of a decision that we made. Mind you, we didn't know that this would be one of the outcomes of it, but we think it's an amazing outcome. Now, if you want to basically think big, and if you want to essentially build something which is global, it's not necessarily, you will not be able to do that unless you think talent. And obviously, it sounds pretty cliche to say, well, we also say the same thing, but we really tried hard of it. So today, very, very excited, because, almost 2/3 of 1,000 people come from one of these backgrounds for us. And it's not easy, because, how do you, there are problems in the world where you try to essentially have few very smart people and very accomplished people. But the problem scale is very different when you actually have almost 50% to 2/3 of your organization coming from these backgrounds, because you have to keep every one of them amazingly excited throughout the journey. 3 years ago, we were 1,000 people. Today, we are 1,000 people. Somebody came and asked me, oh, well, you're not growing. That's not the case. We grew from 1,000 people to 4,000 people because each one of these people are equal to 4 times the capacity. And that's the big advantage when you actually get amazing quality people, that you don't necessarily have to grow the number of people in the organization, but you have to just keep putting more and more on the same set of people because they want more. And I think that we felt theoretically that should happen, but we saw it take place here, and we were very, very excited because, the scaling of our people is an absolute different magnitude for us, which I don't think I've seen in many other organizations. So, this was more to share with you some of the principles of how we have tried to grow ourselves. Now, what that resulted in, some very interesting things that this resulted in was, we were recognized by MIT as one of the top 50 most disruptive companies. They did this in 2013 when we had not launched any of the products that we actually were going to launch. We did share with them how we were thinking about this. Frankly, we were halfway through our own thinking at the time when we shared it with them. But what they said was, look, what you're trying to do, even if you accomplished a quarter of that, you would change the world of advertising. And that's why we got recognized. It was a very, very proud moment for all the engineers that are in the company, because they felt that somebody externally, what they do outside of the fact of these financial metrics, etc., has recognized their core value of what they are trying to do before the thing is out and showcasing the result. And therefore, we felt really proud of that. Also felt proud because, a lot of recognition we got within the country. Look, we are a big, big believer in Digital India. We are a huge supporter of that. And there are a lot of programs that we are trying to do ourselves in trying to support the Digital India initiative. And we think advertising, especially in markets like India, can play a massive role in bringing out services to the masses, to everyone out there at a breakneck speed and at quality that nobody else has been able to do in the past. And India requires an advertising platform that is for India. It requires an advertising platform that is built for India, because Indian advertising platform is not going to be the same as the global advertising platform. We're going to be announcing that, that platform on August 5th. So you'll hear about it as we go about talking. I'm going to give you a glimpse of that today, by the way. All of that has led to a certain level of scale that we have achieved today. And a lot of our scale is pretty daunting, because I still, in my own head, every day I have 2008 scale, which was, we would serve ads to 8,000 people, and we were very excited when it went to 10,000 people. And we thought that, look, this is a big business, because we are showing advertising to 10,000 people, and we would literally build models where we would say, okay, hey, tomorrow, in about 6 months from now, we will be able to show advertising to 1 lakh people. And look, that's great, because Times of India has 6 lakh people in the world, in the country. So 1 lakh is 1/6 the scale, so it's a pretty interesting business to be in. Today, we serve ads to about 1.2 billion people. And we show them, and we believe that when we show advertising to 1.2 billion people, we are changing their decision making. We are impacting their decision making. Not just that, if you look at some of the very interesting metrics, in the last year itself, we served about 2.2 trillion ads. I had to kind of go through this when somebody was showing me the numbers, like, do what you do as a kid, unit, tens, hundreds, thousand, 10,000, like that, to come up to what trillion meant for us. We generate a lot of data. As you can see here, almost 24 terabytes of data of the usage of what people are doing and how they are reacting, and what is their, what is it that they are, that they are liking and disliking. And so roughly at that scale, we have a very deep understanding of the emotional graph of people. We understand what 1.2 billion people across few hundred countries are actually looking for. This scale, by the way, is massive. Just so you know, it's whole of India. And this is increasing. We think in about 18 months from now, this number should touch close to about 2 billion people. And not just the increases in number of people, but also the increase in the number of times we touch them. If you do the simple maths here, given we do about 200 billion ads to about 1 billion people, we show advertising to a single individual on this planet about 200 times a month. That's the number of times that we can touch them, and they can see what we are trying to do with them. Not just this, we are very proud that we are number 3 in the world today, after Google and Facebook, in the scale of advertising that we do. But I can bet you, we are at least 2 years ahead of them in terms of the technology and the product that we have. And all of that product and all of that technology was built out of Bangalore. All of this was amazing. The business was, you could sit on, you could look at the business, you could just see the scale, you could just look at the curve, and it was just, it was going, top right corner. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. 2 years ago, we sat down, few of us, and we said, look, something's not right. This will be a large business. What do we need to do to make it 10x larger? We needed to disrupt ourselves. We needed to disrupt further. And it did not take us even a minute to decide that, yes, we should go ahead and disrupt ourselves further, because we are technologists at the core of it. And we decided to essentially do many things. We decided to essentially talk about things where we wanted to reimagine advertising. We felt that the way the advertising is today is not good. We needed to reimagine advertising completely. And therefore, last week, 2 weeks ago, we launched our probably the most advanced advertising platform in the world ever existed, called Meep. And we were very excited by the launch of this platform, by the way, that we launched in San Francisco, because all of us consider Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley here, I mean as a mindset for creating disruption. We are very proud of the fact that we were able to create a disruptive product from India, the Silicon Valley of India, the Silicon Valley of Asia, and take it back to the original Silicon Valley and launch that product there, amongst more than 500 people that from the who's who of the Silicon Valley who came in and attended, because they saw and they wanted to figure out what is it that InMobi is doing, because what you are articulating is changing the world of advertising. And we got probably the most resounding response for the launch of Meep. And I'm going to take you guys through what Meep is and talk about it, how it could impact all of you out here who are developers. So disrupting the advertising was obviously the core of this. If you look at current forms of advertising, that exist, forget in mobile, but even within in general, they suck pretty much. Advertising, every one of you, when you're looking at your television, boom, you change the channel. If you're looking at a newspaper, you look elsewhere. If you're listening to radio, you change the channel. There's something not right about this. There's something not right. How can an industry which is so large work on principles where users don't like it? And that was the core reason why we wanted to disrupt advertising in general. And so we looked at advertising's growth within the mobile medium. We saw banners come in. How many of you seen banners? Pretty good. Then came interstitials. That was also pretty nice. But all of them were very disruptive. They were not giving true value to the user. So we innovated further about a year ago, and we launched a platform called the Native Ads Platform. The Native Ads Platform essentially allowed for the ads to blend in with the developer environment. And that blending in with the developer environment essentially created far better user experience, and users started to like it. And we thought that was great, by the way. And that was obviously very, very disruptive, because we were the first set of people who had come out with the Native Ad Platform, and that was nice. It created good experience. But there was still something fundamentally wrong with advertising in general. If you look at advertising, it was not giving users the experience, any advertising experience was not delivering the value that was expected to be delivered to a user. When you go on an app, you don't spend time on an app just because it's forced on you. You spend time on an app because there is value for you. So advertising is the same thing. Think of it as about 4 seconds of an app. Like, why should it not deliver value to you in those 4 seconds when the advertising is appear in front of you? Advertising, by the way, also appeared as if it's in your face. Like it's a race of who can be louder. It's not a race of who can give me more value. It was just, can I just say something louder than what the previous guy said? And if that happens, then that's great. The biggest problem in all of this, by the way, was advertising. Users lost trust in advertising. And that was the biggest challenge. And that's, in a more technical term, that's called ad blindness. How many of you think you have ad blindness today here? How many of you remember looking at the last possible ad on a digital medium? It's very, very hard for you to remember because you're avoiding it. Your brain cells are functioning really hard and spending a lot of energy, and that's why you might be feeling tired at the end of the day, because you're trying to avoid advertising. But that's not the way you can function in the medium. You've got to change that. And to us, by the way, the meaning of advertising, for those of us who are very core to it, is very beautiful. Somebody described to me that advertising is possibly the most primitive and the most purest medium for consumers to discover things, discover new products, discover new services. That's what advertising is supposed to do. But somewhere we lost our way. And so therefore, we've realized that it was time to reimagine advertising in this new mobile-first era. Because unlike the television and the newspaper and the radio, where you had some ways of avoiding it and still be happy with it, mobile being this small a device, you have a vision lock on the device. You can't just suddenly look on the other side and kind of avoid it. You can't. You got to look at it. So the problem became even larger. And by the way, mobile advertising of the overall advertising space is expected to be north of $200 billion. An industry which is supposed to be just mobile advertising, by the way, supposed to be over $200 billion, cannot rely on bad user experiences. And so therefore, for us, it was time to reimagine advertising. And so we reimagined advertising, and we said, look, if you were to reimagine advertising, let's take it back to its core. The core of what advertising was supposed to do in general anyway. The core of creating an experience of discovery instead of creating an experience of who can be louder. Let's create an experience of discovery. But the biggest change in all of this was this experience of discovery was getting created not at the behest of an advertiser, but on what you wanted. We know what you want. We can predict what you want. It's not that hard to predict what you're looking for. We should give you what you're looking for. And if we give you what you're looking for in a manner as if it's content, then it's going to be great. Somebody told me that advertising is commercial content. The operative word there is not commercial, is content. Unfortunately, we flipped it. We said advertising is commercial content. The operative word we had made was commercial. And that's why the industry is basically, working on the principles of who can pay me higher, and therefore I'll put your ad in front, whether the user likes it or not. We changed that. It's a very hard change. We said we're going to put the user at the center of all of this, and we're going to make sure that every experience that goes out there is going to be delivering value to each and every individual out there. The 1.2 billion people, hopefully over the next few months, as they start to see advertising from us, should see advertising as if it is built for you. Let me show you a few examples of that. And by the way, all of these experiences are going to appear inside every one of the apps that you guys are creating out there. So today, as you think about monetization and you try to put these advertising which is not necessarily the most user-friendly, we are going to change that and create these zones of discovery that will allow you to essentially have an amazing experience in general inside those applications. So let me show you a few examples of this. I'm just going to drive through this a little bit faster. Our platform, by the way, which is doing this is called Meep. And so if you're looking at Meep, it basically is on few principles. One, it's about enabling seamless mobile discovery and consumption. Mobile devices, by the way, for a change, allow you to essentially show you something and also allow you to consume that. It is not just a pure creating awareness platform. You can, if you like something, and by the way, all of us are living in this new world where we live in this world where if we see something, we want it. Gone are the days when we saw something and we're going to go to a shop and want it. The world's changing. Today, if you want something, you'll get it then and there. So therefore, advertising's core job is no more creating awareness, but it's about creating an experience of discovery and leading to consumption. And therefore, what this does is enable seamless discovery and consumption. It also talks about delivering far more powerful messages, not as pure, simple messages just like that, but as messages which you could look at in the form of storytelling. Look, all of us kind of look at this world where we relate to stories. So Meep as a platform will create, on the fly, will create stories for consumers. And those stories of consumers will basically get stitched and presented to each one of you in the environments that you're in. Here are a few examples of how the story gets created. So as you see this app called Click, the user seems to be a fan of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones essentially gets, on the fly, multiple products, multiple services of Game of Thrones are created here. Not just products, but even audio-visual products are pulled together. So it basically becomes like a complete experience of understanding what Game of Thrones is all about. You could go further. You could look at products that you could buy from there. You could look at music that you could buy. You could download the videos. You could read summaries about Game of Thrones. All of that is created because there was a belief that you might have wanted, you are interested in Game of Thrones. And by the way, you can go further within that experience, and you can literally complete the experience, and you can buy the product. And so therefore, there is no need for you to essentially have disjointed experiences of trying to discover things. Today, the biggest content consumption doesn't happen by going inside applications anymore. The biggest content consumption happens while you're flowing through different applications. And you discover content and you read it. Gone is the era where you have to go search for content by going inside anything. Similarly, when it comes to advertising, gone is the era when you'll get shown products for which you will have to go wait and go figure things out. You'll be shown products that you wanted, and you can essentially consume it right from then and there. And not just products in the form of physical products, but even digital products. We took the platform a little further, by the way, and we said, look, we can make it even more creative and even better if we were able to get rid of this whole monologues. Look, advertising has always been about the advertiser telling you something. And we said, look, let's change that also. Let's make advertising very, very conversational. And so as we launched Meep, we have made it fairly conversational. So let me see if I could play this example for you here. You can see, in this weather application, there's Meep up there. It creates an experience of discovery inside that application itself. That application is showing you things that you could go do over the weekend because, I think in the context of this example, it was, the weekend was approaching. And you could look at fairly number of things that you could do right from San Francisco. It could be like 2-3 hours of flight that you could do there. And you could, as you discover, the platform allows you to express your emotion. If you look at the emotion that the user can essentially express as it goes into deeper discovery. So the first one was doing higher level discovery. You go and do next level discovery. All of this, by the way, just to be very clear, is pulled on the fly for that user. It's all done real-time stitching. And as you express what you like, what you don't like, you could essentially create a far deeper experience from you could collect all the emotional graph of the people. And once you have all of that emotional graph, you could be far more targeted about what's happening out there. I think it seems to be stuck a little bit. So what did we do here? We essentially figured that there are these amazing applications out there, amazing and beautiful applications out there. Not just few, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of applications. For each one of you, you only have about 30 to 40 applications on your phone, on an average. That too, you only go in 50% of them. How can the goodness of great applications out there from hundreds and thousands of apps, how can the goodness of those applications come to you? How can you discover those applications? So Meep essentially allows you to, what Meep does at the back end, it basically has gone the back end and literally created a deep linked, world's largest index of deep linked cards of all products and services. I think our deep link card infrastructure at the back end is beyond 50 million cards right now and increasing with every partnership that we strike. And then when you come into an environment that you as a developer give me space, in that environment we create this beautiful Meep experience. This beautiful Meep experience is all about bringing together variety of these different cards, few of these cards by the way, that we think is right for you. And as we bring those cards, you create an experience which is of discovery. And if you like what you see, you can consume it. And by the way, given the scale at which we sit, where over 1 billion people see advertising from us over 200 times a month, you wanted to ensure that they are now getting value for the money and value for the time that they're going to give us. The results that we have seen for the time that people have spent with us has just been enormous because people have spent, on an average, I think the last I checked the number, people are spending about 10 seconds on an average on this platform. So what does this mean from a commerce perspective? What does this mean, in general, what is happening here? If you think about it, there are fairly large, we work with fairly large number of partners. We work with, a lot of commerce partners. We work with a lot of service partners who are advertisers on us. But essentially, one of the things Meep does, it creates an alternate commerce platform. Effectively, we are probably creating one of the largest commerce platforms on the planet, which are, think of this as window shopping. Don't think of this as destination shopping, think of this as window shopping. And that's what this platform is essentially getting created, where you could reach on this platform over 1 billion users in this commerce platform. You could access over 100 billion shopping sessions a month, which is significantly larger than any shopping platform on the planet. You could understand consumers' emotions and unlock them. And you could enable literally in-the-moment purchase. All of these things happen in this massive commerce platform that gets created in partnership with all the players out there. By the way, just to be very clear, this commerce platform is complementary to the existing destination-based commerce platforms. And to us, in a mobile era that we live in, Meep essentially enables that to happen. By the way, even just before I go forward, what does it mean for developers? From a developer point of view, Meep allows you to essentially embed monetization now, which is no more jarring, which is no more making your experience go bad. When you put these experiences inside your application now, your application value actually goes up. Not just from a user experience point of view, or certainly from a user experience point of view, but also gives you much better monetization. So net, it's an amazing platform for developers, and we're just starting to roll it out in India over the next 3 months or so. So I talked about few principles, in the beginning of the conversation. I talked about principles of, what we needed to do in order to grow the company and get it to a certain level. We realized that if we wanted to essentially disrupt and create this disruption, it's just not going to happen if 3 people are going to sit in a corner and come up with innovation. We needed to disrupt our culture. And to us, much bigger than the product that we have brought out, the bigger disruption that we believe that we have been able to do is the disruption in our own culture. And the disruption in our own culture has been to the extent that we have actually gone ahead and named our culture. It's called Yavyo. And we announced it about a month ago to the world that we think Yavyo is a great culture to have. And I'll talk about this for a second. But the Yavyo essentially means reimagination, oneness, and action. To us, our culture essentially is built on these three pillars. And while the culture could be built on these three pillars, it was critical that the philosophy of our culture really comes to life. Every one of us may talk about this, that we want to create a risk-taking environment. We all wanted to do that, right? We are all out here disrupting the ecosystem. Not just us as developers and startups, but even Samsung. They are trying to disrupt their own culture because it's critical. They want to create a culture of risk-taking because otherwise you're not going to grow, especially in this hyper-competitive, fast-growing, fast-changing world. We wanted to create an experience of trust in our people because we all say we trust our people, but do we really do? We wanted to make sure that we were really doing that. We wanted to create a collaborative, high-energy environment. Everyone of us wants to do that, but we thought really hard about creating that environment. And we literally wanted to throw out any archaic thinking that people bring in because they have done it in the past. Because we really felt first principle thinking is critical when you want to do disruption. And so here are some of the things that we actually brought about that we're really, really proud of. So first, we said, stop managing your people. We were all about managing our people. We would have systems and processes, systems of doing performance management system, figuring out, hey, what did you tell and how much did you achieve? Let me give you a grade next to it and then create a complex, computation to calculate your bonus. We threw everything out. We threw out performance management system from the company about a year and a half ago. Accenture threw it out last week. It was a great news, by the way, because some large company doing this is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But we did that about a year and a half ago. And we basically said this whole thinking about paying bonuses doesn't make sense anymore. Because we have amazing people in the company, we don't believe that good people, are necessarily motivated by a lot of money. They are motivated by great rewards, but they don't work extra hard because they think that they'll get more money because of that. They anyway will work extra hard. So we said, look, let's get rid of this whole think about bonuses. So we have started paying everyone in the company 100% bonus. No questions asked. You will be paid everything. But because we want to trust you. And we want to create that environment of trust. We threw out the performance management system. The biggest people who were relieved because of that, the managers. Every quarter, and I didn't know this earlier, every quarter, every manager spent a week. That's 4 weeks. 4 weeks out of 52 weeks, of which there is vacation, by the way. So you're basically 20% of a manager's time was going in figuring out how to give feedback, because that feedback is not absolutely pure, because that feedback was linked to some payout. And so they were always worried about how can I tell him that he's bad because he's gonna yell at me because I'm gonna cut his bonus. So we got rid of all of that. We said you don't have to do anything like that. We're gonna pay 100% bonus, but you need to have conversation about how the person will grow in life. Let's care about his growth, not about managing the money because it's too myopic. We are being too myopic. We also got rid of a lot of our policies. We have this thing in the company now called 1% versus 99%. We realized that we had these massive policies for travel and for leave and for whatever. And we realized all of these policies were there because one person or two people somewhere, sometime, created havoc. But we actually, penalized the rest 99% of the people. So we had this whole travel policy, and it's an interesting example, where we said, look, you can spend $148 per day on hotel in San Francisco. Like, who came up with the number? How did you come up with the number? What happens if it's 153? Like, will you get penalized? And, so we said, look, it's not making sense because, nobody does these things, by the way. Nobody's like really bad who's going to go and live in Ritz-Carlton next day and spend like $500. But, let's leave it to people and figure it out. People are pretty apprehensive. And so the first quarter that we rolled this out, we said, hey, travel as if it were your own money. If you are going on with your own money, how would you spend it? Just go spend it that way. Of 1,000 people company, the expectation was, that our numbers, the travel budget, would overshoot by 3 to 4x. And, a bunch of people within my finance team were obviously sweating. There were three cases where people shot it up by 15% of what they were expected to do. That is 0.3%. 0.3% of the people did not adhere to what we expected would be the norm. We'd never defined the norm, by the way. Our travel budget is down by 35% since we launched this policy. It's not gone up. We have this reimbursement, and we had this form that you fill and you send it and whatnot. We said, look, we're just going to approve every reimbursement. Then nothing happens. It's actually pretty nice. I'll come to that. And as we do a lot of these things, in the company, it was essentially about going through a lot of these massive policies and massive set of things that were changing the way we functioned, that were changing the way we looked at how to create disruptive products, how to create an environment that could create disruption within the company. And to us, Yavio became the way of life for us. And Yavio became a way where we felt that if we were to be able to open Yavio to the world, it would allow for disruption to happen at scale, because we found that if you wanted to create true disruption, there was a sense of Yavio that everyone requires to have. A sense of Yavio that every one of you out here, if you're looking for disruption, which I think a lot of you as developers are looking for, it is just not only about trying to have it in the form of what it means from a product creation perspective, but far more at the mindset level. And as you bring organizations and create organizations, as you build your own apps, as you build your own services, you probably require a very different level of disruption. And in order to bring that disruption, you probably need a very different level of culture within the company. And to me, that is the reason to share that, by the way, is you cannot create disruption, you cannot create disruptive products without having a disruptive culture out there. While you could talk about creating platforms and creating great products, go work on creating the culture, because then you will come out with massive products that will change the way your own organizations work. And to me, as we built out our own disruption for the developer ecosystem, as we built out our own disruption in the advertising space, culture played the most underlying role for us. So now, as we go forward, we thought we have done amazing amount of work over the last 6 years, 7 years on the iOS and Android platform. Amazing amount of work. We think today, for the first time, we are unveiling the monetization solution for all of you as mobile developers on the Tizen platform. And Meep will actually be available for every one of the Tizen developers out here to monetize. And in order for that monetization to be as good, if not better, than what monetization you can get within the iOS and the Android platform. Not just that, by the way. For the first time, Tizen will basically have, India, we have leapfrogged many things. Right? We leapfrogged landlines. We leapfrogged, many such things. We're going to leapfrog bad advertising. Tizen is going to leapfrog bad user experience in the form of bad advertising. With Meep that we announced for Tizen, your experiences that you will create for for your users is going to be phenomenally good. And so what does Meep for Tizen look like? It'll enable complementary content and services through Meep. So whatever your context of creation of your app is, it'll create a complementary services around that. It'll probably deliver significantly higher engagement and monetization than any other possible advertising mechanism can. And for each one of your experiences, it'll possibly put together a far more premium experience that you probably haven't seen earlier. Here are a few examples of that. Not sure if the audio can come in, but here are certain examples of what it would look like when it comes on the Meep, when it comes on Tizen platform. As you see here, this is an audio app. Meep comes in here, creates this experience of discovery within the Tizen platform, pulls out a lot of these products that could come together based on the app that you're in. Given that the app was a lot around music and rock music specifically, there are a bunch of stuff that are all related to rock music that were pulled together that the user can essentially just experience and go forward on. Here's one more example that you could look at here, which is a chatting application. And so any Tizen app which has the chatting application, I don't know whether you saw it there, but you can embed Meep within the app completely. If it's embedded, it'll create these experiences of discovery within the app that you could essentially go and create far better monetization with. So what are we specifically launching? We will launch the first SDK on Tizen for developers. We are going to be enabling monetization for all the app developers who are developing apps for Tizen. And hopefully, for all the Tizen users, we'll create amazing experiences. And by the way, you could do this starting 2016. It's already in the works. So by 2016, early 2016, you should actually have this available to all of you as Tizen developers. So with that, I just wanted to end this. And I, again, wanted to thank Samsung and Team Tizen out here. I think you guys have done an amazing, amazing job in the form of the platform that you've created. Probably there was clearly a need for this platform. Pretty kicked that it is really scaling within within India to begin with. And I certainly look forward to us participating in this ecosystem far more strongly, and hopefully making this ecosystem significantly stronger, far faster than what iOS and Android could become, because we have a lot of learning from that. So with that, with all the work that we have done from India, and for all of you that are creating disruption from India, it's been an amazing morning to hear everyone out here, and to the power of digital India. Thank you so much for listening to me.